There won't be any Armageddon. There won't be any nuclear third world war. This is what Yahweh God in the old book says, and there's the details that we're going to go through. Now, for a long time, a lot of countries have been told that they have to put in fluoride into their drinking water. Here's a document from the government of the Gold Coast City Council, issued by the Mayor of the Gold Coast in March 29 of 2010. I'll just touch on a couple of the highlights. And point one, on your screen, you'll see that whilst we all thought it was a controversy and it wasn't true, there is proof positive that they realised that it was being officiated by the United Nations aircraft and that they were spraying the atmosphere with heavy metals, etc. Item two, these heavy metals eventually landing on the roof and waterways is poisoning everything. And it says there over 78% over the last 14 months has toxicity. The advice that the Mayor says, we strongly advise residents not to drink the tank water from this date forward. It has been tested positive for unknown toxic residues. And item three, the Mayor's even telling people to stay inside when there's the clouds above and there's spraying of chemtrails going on. And he says that they are cooperating with the authorities about this. But there's a question there, he says, in question 4. In some cases, compensation may be sought for specific medical conditions. Would you believe that? In item 5, we have written to the United Nations, he says, and asked them to cease this activity over our head. What do you think of that for a document, particularly coming from a government that would not admit that chemtrails and HAARP was happening anywhere in the world? That also being a document that I can't understand why a lot of people didn't take up a joint action legally against the government for not only not telling the people, but for causing it to happen. And no doubt it has caused a lot of sickness amongst a lot of people. And the next clip I'm going to show you that we had more details on this scientifically proven by a lot of doctors and scientists. And then I'm going to show you that we tested the water that came out of the sky, and you're going to get a shock when you realize what is in the water that comes out of the sky as rainwater. Now, up the top of this clip, we've called that fluoridation government approved poison. There's a whole list of doctors and scientists that have put together this details that I'm giving you. And in item 1, it tells you that over 40,000 children, it showed that there was no reduced decay rate between fluoride and non-fluoride regions. Item 2 is also giving you details there about fluoride and its poison. But in particular, in the yellow writing you can see there, numerous populations of habitat for breeding fish has been wiped out. And there's one point there that you should look at. If you marry this back to the old book, Yahweh said he will destroy the fish and the birds. And no doubt he puts it into the evil minds of evil leaders to carry out those plans. Item 3 is very disturbing. It says that there was 7-fold increase in osteosarcoma that was found in young males between 10 and 19 years of age. That's by a Dr. John Lee, MD. And he says there, I cannot think of any other agent with this degree of risk, which is mandated by public health services to be added to the food and the water. In item 4, it says there was 246 patients that were 65 years and over having a significant increase in hip fractures, both men and women, exposed to fluoride. And it says the factor is development of osteoporosis and bone disease. And item 5, it says the only ones that definitely benefit from the fluoridation are the chemical companies and those who make the fluoride equipment. And it says fluoride is one of the most common and also one of the most caustic of industrial chemists. And they've got no way of getting rid of it, so they're forcing people to drink it. I gave you a report on this in the previous report. Just realize that I'm giving you these details because it's one of the terrible things that have been told to the public, a whole box of lies, and this is leading into the time of trouble such as never before in this Earth's history. Now, I've shown this in several of my reports, but I took a container, glass container, of the rainwater. I took it to the government forensic laboratory and I asked them to test it. And there's the paper on your screen that came back. Now you can see that there's aluminium, arsenic, barium, beryllium, boron, cadmium, chromium, cobalt, copper, iron, lead, lithium, manganese, mercury, molybdenum, nickel, selenium, strontium, thallium, zinc, and so on. That was in the water that we collected from the sky. So in other words, when you see the HAARP cloud and the chemtrails up in your sky and you collect the water, or you know that that water is coming down onto your roof, into your tanks, that gives you an idea of what they are doing. There's no approval of that from any people. There's no referendum of that to give them permission from any people in any government in any country. And yet they have got the local governments, the state governments, the federal governments to give them a stamp of approval on the treaties to pour this stuff into our atmosphere. Definitely leading up to the time of trouble such as never before in this Earth's history. Now this is really frightening. This is about scalar electromagnetic weapons. And this is definitely leading into the time of trouble that it talks about in Jeremiah 30 verse 7 and Daniel 12:1. I've called it there to abbreviate it for you, SEWs. And this was invented by Tesla. So they've given a name to them, Tesla howitzers. There's items 1, 2, and 3. I'll read a little bit with you. The Defense Secretary William Cohen in 1997 knew about it and spoke about it. SEWs are being used to produce man-made climate change. Now, they're not going to admit to that to you because they want to get carbon taxes to pay for their global government. I put there the fake, false CO2 science is fed to all media and is used to blame for global warming, raising the New World Order taxes, and concealing this secret technology from the public. Now, if anybody wants to go into Google, you will find that we as a world is in a global cooling, not a global warming. In fact, you will find that there is more ice over the poles than ever before, and the airports and highways are at the moment on the news item being closed down because of global cooling. More ice than they've ever seen in their life. Item B, the SEWs can cause earthquakes as well as tornadoes and cyclones. SEWs can cause volcanic eruptions. And there is the name of an organization on the web that you can get, chania.org. This was all confirmed also by the Secretary of Defense, Russell. SEWs are aimed at their targets by using a worldwide electromagnetic pattern called a woodpecker grid, or by placing a marker beacon at the target location. Item 2, it is what is called the exothermic mode. The howitzers can cause a blast of heat at the interference zone. Now I'll let you read that on your own time. But it also tells you there they can make any aeroplane drop out of the sky anywhere. It is possible to destroy any missile in its flight path or at its silo. And this cold explosions can be used to freeze tanks and the personnel and the equipment, killing all personnel. Item 3 is terribly, terribly concerning. They can use it for, they call it the mind zapper, to control the mind of people, but at a higher level, they can cause people to actually die instantly, and every part of their body just completely dies instantly. Now, at the beginning of this documentary, my question to you is, you be the judge and you work out in your mind who is going to be responsible for causing the time of trouble such as never before in the history of this earth. You're looking at the recently elected Black Pope, the Jesuit that has made the position of pontiff, and he will call himself Pope Francis I. Now, up the top there, doesn't matter what you read there, you will see that they are in control of all of the governments. And the Pope, actually the White Pope, secretly follows the direct orders of the Black Pope. The Black Pope is the superior general of the Catholic order. The Black Pope is called the King of the world. He is the leader of this Catholic order. If you go through there, since 1814, they have been in complete control of the obscenely wealthy Vatican and the world gold. And they're in control of the Catholic military order of the Mafia. Now that means that they are also in control, and that includes the DMBS. Google that and you'll realise that's the Deep Underground Military Bases, United Nations, NATO, and don't forget NATO controls more than 75% of the world military, the EU Commission, Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations, Illuminati, Fabians, Zionists, the Bilderberg Group, Skull and Bones, etc. And the UCC laws, global laws, which have now taken over in all of our courts in most countries, comes from this organisation. They will see that the Noahide laws will replace the Ten Commandments, which is behind the Westminster system. That will all be done away with. They own control of the central banks, World Health Organization, the big multinational corporations, leading chemical and drug companies, the mainstream media, the Knights of Malta, the Knights of Columbus, the Knights Templar, and the Committee of 300, Freemasons, and the Secret Services, CIA, FBI, NSA, SI5, MI6, Scotland Yard, Israel Mossad, CSIS, and so on. You can read that, stop the film, and go back and take all the details that you need. Now, the City of London, which is the World Finance Control Centre, and that's in the hands of Rothschild in the EU and Rockefellers in the US. Now, the Pope is the most powerful man on earth. He rules over maritime laws, which I've already explained to you. Now, the Vatican owns 70% of Israel and the Temple Mount for their third Solomon temple that they want to build there. He's a part of the Arcana Acrorum, and I'll let you read that yourself. The blueprint for the Jesuit-controlled New World Order, abolition of ordinary government, abolition of private property, abolition of inheritance, and abolition of religions. There's something a lot more disturbing in my mind because it says they're on their agenda, on their table, is the abolition of the family, abolition of inheritance, abolition of patriotism, abolition of the population. In other words, bring the population down to 500 million. Creation of the New World Government, global government, and the Jesuits have now finally infiltrated into all governments and leaders such as Obama, Rudd, Blair, Janto, Sarkozy, Pears, and so on. Now, all of the government leaders and ministers of all the governments now are nothing more than puppets to answer to and to be obedient to this organisation and their evil commands. This is definitely going into a time of trouble such as never before in the Earth's history. Now, in these 6 items, or 5 items that I've put in front of you, you asked a question, and you can go through it, you can Google all the information. All governments are covertly, without telling the people, converted into corporations without any referendum. Ask the question, why? Why do the heads of Monsanto, the mega food companies, drug-related corporations, they seem to be moving in and out of the FDA to approve their own products and making their own laws, while the banksters, oligarchy, they freely go in and out of the Fed and the Treasury Department, and they are the oil people. 3, and it took many years for the Bauer family to gain acceptance from the Cecil family. Now you can read that when you've got a moment or two. Item 4. The Jesuits have bought back the control of the City of London. And if you go through the history books, you'll find that the Jesuits were kicked out of the Vatican, and also they were kicked out of many countries. But they seem to have been able to get back. They've bought themselves back, and they've taken over the City of London, which is under the Rothschild control, and that was commanded covertly by the Knights of Malta. Bit more there in item 5 that you can read about the Rothschilds, and also why the Israel Prime Minister and his minions gave away East Jerusalem and actually gave it to the Jesuits, to this organisation. Ask the question, why? Now, to give you an idea of who the people are that are in control of all of the governments in the world today, you've got a montage of pictures there, but I'll briefly just cover a couple of them with you, and I'll call this chart 4. Particularly Israel. Every prime minister, you'll see pictures of the Prime Minister of Israel there shaking hands with the Pope and other dignitaries. You'll see that, so far as the Christian church is concerned, people like Robert Schuller, there's a picture of him shaking hands with the people, and also there's other dignitaries of the Christian, also they are shaking hands with the Pope. But there's one thing that really concerned me. The chief rabbi and other rabbis, there you see a picture of the chief rabbi of Israel shaking hands with the Pope. And of course, Brown and Obama, Bush, they're all there in those pictures. And the prime ministers of Israel, there they are, they're all shaking hands with the Pope, and their handshake gives them away. They make sure that they're recognised as a 30 to 33 degree of whatever secret society they belong to. That is the way they identify each other with each other. And there they are, all of the secret societies, leaders of this world, treacherously looking after you. Now, I've given you a lot of Google reports, but you could do this yourself. If you were to put in UN with IMF Global Takeover, you will find there's 500,000 there to explain to you that that is their agenda and that's going to happen, including Australia and America. And about the Nile River drying up and the Euphrates River drying up, Yahweh says in the Bible that that is what he's going to do. Now, as I said in the beginning of this documentary, you're going to be the judge and you're going to decide who is going to be responsible for this time of trouble such as never before in the Earth's history. And that's what we're coming very close to. And the Agenda 21 that's been imposed by the United Nations all the way through to every council, every government in the world, that is already killing a lot of our ecosystem, our birds. As a matter of fact, talking about that, the swifts used to come down at this time of the year from the Northern Hemisphere to Australia. This year, there's not a single swift flying around the sky. Look at those items on the summary. It's for you to decide. After you have Googled the UN takeover and got the details, the fluoride government warning in this documentary, that's in chart 5, the fluoride scientifically proven, that's in chart 5B, the poison rainwater tested, I gave that to you in this documentary in chart 6. Chart 2, the scalar, SEWs, HAARP, which is used to make man-made climate change, earthquakes, cyclones, deluding the public that CO2 is to blame for global warming when there's a global cooling. There's more ice over the poles than there has been for 150 years. That's a fraud. But that is to induce countries to collect taxes, carbon taxes, to fund the IMF, United Nations, NATO and the New World Order. Chart 1, item 6, there you've got all the details of the Jesuit Black Pope and the control that they have over all of those items. And you can stop the film and go through all that. You can Google it and you will find that not only are they in control of all those items, they've got a lot more things that they are in control of. So you be the judge. Who will be responsible to cause the time of trouble that we are expecting very soon, such as never before on this earth? Jeremiah 30 verse 7 and Daniel chapter 12 verse 1. But there's one thing that for those who would like to investigate this and realize Yahweh, the creator God of this earth, intervenes. And he does intervene and kills off, destroys what is referred to in the book as the mute abomination and the terrible beast in Daniel. And that is destroyed by the hand of Yahweh God. Thank you for that, Yahweh God, because without any intervention by the creator God of this world, how long would it take these people to kill everybody on this earth? And what for? For their own greedy gain. There's no other reason, because they've got all the money of the world anyway, but they want everybody, us, to be their serfs, to be their slaves. That is their goal, and you've seen that in this report. Now, you've already seen this chart, but I've put it up again so that people realize that there is hope. There is a way to overcome this and the terror and the horror that it's going to cause, because the Creator God Yahweh has made a promise that he will intervene. All of the items that you see listed there about a new chosen Israel. When I say a new chosen Israel, I've given you reports on this. And the underline of it all is that the old, wicked, evil Israel and Judah, particularly Israel, that was wiped out by the hand of Yahweh by the Assyrians 721 BC. There's never been Israel since then. And then again, whatever was left of them, and Judah, that was wiped out by the hand of Yahweh God, exiled them to Babylon. And since that period of time, there's never been any Israel. And the people that have usurped that position to be Israel, going back to the land and calling themselves Israel in 1948, is a fake. It is a fraud. And they are no more Israel than your pet dog. I put in this note also, realize the name Israel, that came from Yahweh. And it was given to Jacob for overcoming sin. Now that name Israel is owned by Yahweh, and it's up to Yahweh to revoke any covenants belonging to it, and select a new group that he has chosen and selected because they will be faithful to him. And this new group will be the Israel that will be redeemed at the end of days. This means that Yahweh can fulfill all of his promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He can fulfill all of the covenants that he has made concerning Israel. And it also has deluded a lot of people because in the old book, he has mixed in the same chapters and verses, the curses, and then he's mixed in the redemption. So people read the redemption part, not realizing that they haven't done the right thing, they haven't given up their idols, they haven't done what Yahweh asked them to do, to listen to his words, be obedient to his laws, and yet they went to Babylon, came back from Babylon with Ezra, and I've given you details of Ezra and the people that were in Babylon. Yahweh said about them, he said, don't take any notice of them. They speak in my name, but I did not send them. But all of the people still took notice of these evil people. And you've got today the Talmud, the Mishnah, the Gemara, the Oral Law, which came out of Babylon, and the Jews today will not speak his name because Yahweh said, I will take my name out of their mouth. And he banned them from speaking the word Yahweh.